With the team on a bye, it felt like an appropriate time to kind of self-evaluate, go out, look at everything that everybody's done. How are we looking, individually? How are we looking as a team? So there's going to be a lot of stats ripped off in this video. I'm going to try to go through them pretty quickly so this is not so monotonous, but kind of want to get, an overview of how everybody's done. So we'll start with Anthony Richardson. What was he able to do in the games he played? He played in 4 games. He was 50 for 84, which comes out to 59.5% passing. And then he had 577 yards with 3 touchdowns and 1 interception. That interception in the Jaguars game, we all know what happened there. Then you look at it, what he did on the ground. He had 25 carries, 136 yards, and 4 touchdowns on those 25 carries. He was absolutely electric in the run game. And in a little bit we saw of him as a passer, he did a great job with pocket presence and did a good job being able to get away from pressure. Obviously, just has to work on his accuracy. We knew that would be a thing, but what we saw from Anthony Richardson so far seemed very promising. Hopefully, we get him back next season and he's able to stay healthy so that we can go on a run. He looks like he could be very special. But if you look at everybody else, look at what Gardner's done in the games. He's played in every single game, played in all 10 games. He's sitting at 63.7% completion percentage, 1,721 passing yards, 8 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. And a lot of people have been comparing Gardner Minshew's stats to Trevor Lawrence's stats, and that's fair. You know what I mean? You could definitely do that. But I myself think they're two different levels of quarterbacks. And Gardner Minshew, like outside of the interceptions, like his stats aren't that bad. So if he can just not turn the ball over, we'll have chances to win. Now, he's also got to figure out how to hit those deep passes. We saw in this last game, there were 5 or 6 different passes that should have hit, should have been big plays, and he just missed the mark. And he almost missed Josh Downs on a massive play, but Josh Downs was able to stretch out and got that one, right? He stretched out for another one and missed it. So Garner's just got to get more accurate. If he can be more accurate with those downfield passes, we have a chance. Because when you look at the pieces around the quarterback, right, Zach Moss, still 5th in the NFL in terms of rushing yards, and he only got 1 carry last game. Like JT's starting to dominate that backfield again, so that's going to start to change. But Zach Moss has been great for us this year, played in 9 games, has 617 total yards right now. Also has 5 touchdowns on the ground. Jonathan Taylor, in the 6 games that he's played in, has 323 yards with 2 touchdowns. Then when you look at what the running backs have done in the past game, again, one's played 6 games, the other's played 9. They both have 16 catches. Jonathan Taylor has 137 yards. Zach Moss has 123, and they both have 1 touchdown through the air. So they're both able to get on the board both ways, both able to be used both ways. Jonathan Taylor had a really bad pass blocking grade in this last game, and not so effective that way, but the offensive line's been really good. So Jonathan Taylor doesn't have to do as much of that, luckily. But then you look at all these other receivers, right? Michael Pittman Jr., 66 catches on 98 targets, 677, and 3 touchdowns. Josh Downs, 43 catches on 60 targets, 523 yards, 2 touchdowns. Alec Pierce, 18 catches on 33 targets, 264 yards, no touchdowns. Then you start getting into the tight ends, right? Kylan Granson, 17 catches, 175, a touchdown. Drew Ogletree, 9 catches, 147, 2 touchdowns. So as we read through those, right, you see the discrepancy here, right? You have Michael Pittman Jr. having 98 targets, has 66 catches right now, obvious number 1 in this offense. But then you have Josh Downs, the rookie, coming in clear second with 43 catches on 60 targets, 523 yards. So those two separating themselves, those two corner pieces in this offense. And honestly, I'm not sure why we don't use the tight ends more. That's really the offensive conversation. Where it all comes back to for me is not only are we not running the ball the way I thought we could this year, at least not since Jonathan Taylor came back, which is a weird thing. Since Jonathan Taylor came back, the run game has gotten worse than it was when Jonathan Taylor wasn't here. But in my opinion, I just think the tight ends need to be used more. Right, Drew Ogletree is an absolute unit out there. He's great in the run game and great as a run blocker. I understand why you would keep him in as a pass blocker also, but Drew Ogletree is a special athlete. He's a big dude. Get him the ball. Let him get a guy and carry him to a first down, right? He could push some linebackers a couple yards. Like, get him the ball, let him be a playmaker, let him get the ball in his hands and make plays. Kylan Granson has good hands for the most part. Get the ball to him. Like, I just think we need to be using the tight ends more, right? Will Mallory barely plays. We barely see him. Like, we have playmakers. We just aren't using them. And I feel like that's one of the self evaluation things that the Colts are going to be doing as they look through the film and try to figure out what they can do differently over these last 7 games. I think they're going to find a way to try to get these tight ends more involved in the offense. How are we going to evolve this offense to be more for Gardner Minshew than it was supposed to be for Anthony Richardson, right? So this bye week, I think that's going to be the transition we see. I think the offense is going to shift a little bit now that they have time to plan for it, right? Maybe some things to watch and the team needs to expect, that they may have talked about internally. At least that's what I would think, try to design this thing to be more suited to what Garner can do well, since, the quarterback is such an important piece of the entire puzzle on a football team. Okay, so just to go through some more stats here for the offense, Michael Pittman Jr. currently 13th in the NFL for receivers in terms of yards. And the Colts as an offense are 13th in the NFL in yards per game. The Dolphins are all the way up at 435. The next closest is the Lions at 406. Nobody else is touching 400. San Francisco's after that with 383, but the Colts at 13 are at 336. And I think that right there is pretty indicative of how you would say the offense is under Gardner Minshew, kind of middle of the pack, which is why we call him the best backup in the league. It's not going to be horrible all the time, but it's not going to be, Minshew mania every single Sunday. So sitting here at 13 overall in terms of offense, of course, we want to see that get better. If we can get, 300 up around 375 is where the elite teams live, right? Houston is at 372, Philadelphia 376, Dallas 379. Buffalo, even though they are also 5-5 right now, they're kind of struggling offensively, still 370 yards a game. The Chiefs 368. So their team's putting up a lot of yards. And I think for us to be even considered for anything, right, we're going to have to push the offense up above 350 yards per game. That's just going to have to happen for the last 7 games of the season. But then in terms of passing yards per game, the Colts are currently 18th in the NFL. And in terms of rush yards per game, they're currently 10th in the NFL at 118, with the Ravens having the most at 154. And then to finish up the offense, they're currently 9th in the NFL in terms of scoring per game at 24.2. The Dolphins, who scored 70 in a game, are at 31.7. Cowboys, who have played the Giants and blown the Giants out twice, are at 29.9. And Philadelphia doing their thing at 28 points per game. San Francisco also at 28. And hey, the Ravens have been on the top of pretty much all these lists, and we beat the Ravens, right? Kind of like beating the Chiefs last year, except we're better this year. So, I have faith that the offense can figure it out. They just got to not turn the ball over. Again, Gardner, it's all on Gardner, really. As long as Gardner can be accurate and stretch the field, that'll help open up some things in the run game. But Gardner also has to not turn the ball over, right? Because we talked about the 6 interceptions. That isn't even including the turnovers that are fumbles when he's sacked and the other team gets it. So Gardner has to be better. That's really what it comes down to. And again, I think they're going to change some things in the offense to try to make it better for Gardner to have success, because again, it was supposed to be designed to work for Anthony Richardson, and they've been trying to work on the fly with that. I think with a little bit of extra preparation, they can get guys ready to go in a different direction, still run a lot of what they run, but be able to do different things and at least have some time like, hey, we might be changing to doing this, this, and this because of this, this, and this. And that's what they go with. So this could be the time we see some of those changes happen. Again, bye week, big for self-evaluation. But now as we look towards the defense, we're currently giving up the 7th most yards in the NFL per game at 358.5. And I don't know if you would believe me if I told you this. We all, the secondary's been so bad, right? Somehow, some way, we have 10 more passing yards than our opponents. If you combine all the games together, we have 2,298 passing yards. Our opponents have 2,288, right? We have 10 more yards. But where we're losing battles in games is the running game. We have 1,180 yards total rushing. Other teams have 1,297. Now, I don't know about you, but especially with Anthony Richardson and when he went down and JT was able to come back, I thought we'd be running all over teams, and our run defense was so good to start the year. I thought we'd be able to continue that, but obviously Grover Stewart being out definitely changes that, and it's been much worse without him. But that's just not the way I thought things would go, and I thought that was interesting when I started looking up all these stats. I would have never guessed that with the way the secondary's been for us this year, that we had more passing yards than our opponents. Just would have never thought. But right now, again, the seventh most total yards given up is where we're sitting right now with 358 and a half. And a lot's been made of this defense. Gus Bradley coming under a lot of fire. He definitely doesn't blitz enough. If there's one thing I can say, and not everybody's aggressive like that. If you were somebody, that thought you might be a decent coach and you were calling plays, if I was coaching defense, I would blitz. And the simple fact of the matter is that no risk, no reward, right? That's kind of cliche. It's kind of corny, but it's true, man. You got to throw some risk out there to help the team. And with Gus Bradley, what's weird is that there's such a high success rate when he sends blitzes that I'm not sure why he doesn't do it. Seems like the ones that he schemes up, the ones that he draws up, they work. So why not work them in more, and then you can figure out other blitzes in different disguises off of those blitzes, right? Make them think that you're blitzing, and then you fall back in different areas but come from different areas. Like, there's so much you can do if you're a team that sends different guys from different places. And I just think blitzing is a big part of defense. I think it's a big part of successful defenses. A lot of defenses that get sacks a lot generally are getting blitzes, are successful blitzing. Now, you also have to have guys on the front four that can get after the quarterback if you really want to get sacks. And right now, Dio Dangbo is the best in that category for us with 6 sacks. DeForest Buckner has 5. So we have a couple guys up there, but right now they're not competing with the guys at the top of the league, right? And we're not keeping up with those sack numbers. We've given up 30 sacks this year. We've only gotten 22 sacks. So it's really been like when you really break it down, we got a bunch of sacks in the Houston game, got a bunch of sacks in the Panthers game. Like, those are concentrated too. So the pass rush needs to be better. We need to blitz more. Zaire Franklin, absolute dog. 117 total tackles. He's led the league in tackles all season. That's likely to change with us on a bye week. But nonetheless, he's on pace to go over 200 right now. And as long as he plays every game, there's a good chance that happens. Then you look at Kenny Moore, who by far has the most tackles for loss for a cornerback at 7. And just for reference, that's tied for the lead on this team with DeForest Buckner and Dio Dangbo. Right, Zaire Franklin, as good as he's been, he has 2 tackles for loss. Julian Blackman from the safety position actually has 5 tackles for loss. EJ Speed, Samson Ebicom both have 6 tackles for loss. Quiddy Pay has 5 tackles for loss. So we have a lot of guys getting behind the line, right? Pretty good in the run game, but it's those gashes that we let up at the worst possible times and those first downs, right? 3rd and short, 4th and short that we give up for first downs. And another interesting stat that, comes kind of out of that right there is 3rd down conversions. On the season, we are 56 for 143. Opponents are 56 of 146. So essentially the same there, offensively and defensively. So if we can get better as an offense, again, offense has to be better. Defense has to be more consistent. What we've seen from the defense over the last couple of weeks is good, but the offensives that we've gone against have been some of the worst in the NFL. So what I want to see is the defense turn it up every single week going forward. Now, admittedly, we do play some pretty weak offenses as we go through the rest of the schedule, but there are a couple tough ones. And again, if Trent Dilfer was able to win a Super Bowl with a dominant defense, I think Gardner Minshew has a chance. if the defense can continue to dominate. We need to see it against better opponents. We'll have a chance for that. We have Bengals in a couple weeks. I know coming out of the bye it'll be the Buccaneers. So that's what we got to be focused on is stopping Baker Mayfield, making sure he doesn't beat us. He beat us when he was with the Browns. We can't let that happen now that he's with the Bucks. So we'll see what happens. We have a lot more conversations, another video later today. So make sure you're subscribed with notifications on so you can get notified when all the other videos do come out this week. And with that said, as always, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and go Colts.